are going to start with a poll, actually, so if you can please get out your phones. We are going to put up a poll. We want to try to understand just a little bit about the audience here. Can we get that poll up?
There it is.
There we go. How would you describe your current relationship with AI in your professional life? Are you mostly watching, experimenting, actively integrating, or all in? And we'll give it just a minute to see what comes up here. Oh, it's shifting a lot. A lot of people taking
jumping
the poll.
around.
Yeah. Okay. So actively integrating is staying there at the top. I guess that gives you a little bit of a sense of who we have here in the audience. And maybe I'll start by giving our audience a little bit of a sense about you. So some context, earlier in your career, I know you were a tour operator, you ran a luxury travel club in China. You are not directly in the travel industry right now. You're primarily speaking and consulting, mostly in the Middle East, correct. I understand, although you happen to be from Barcelona, so.
Yeah, that's right. I have a base here, yes.
Worked out conveniently. And so you're working with clients of all types, governments and private companies, on design thinking, innovation, digital transformation. So for this session, what we thought we would do is we're going to put up some of your quotes and kind of distill some of your top lessons that you are sharing with your clients to kind of guide our discussion. So if we can get that first quote up there. Okay. So, I think this first one, this kind of begins with the idea that innovation and adoption is happening very differently with AI than what normally happens. I'd love to hear you talk about that a little more and what it means for companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been tracking this since many, many years. I've been into AI and following the whole trend for the better part of 35 years, showing my age. But since the advent of ChatGPT and the whole generative AI wave, I've been really focusing on what's happening with adoption. And so especially when you work with government entities and large private companies, these are big topics like how do we integrate AI into our environment, into our company, and how do we deal with the adoption? And so what people, I think, are not realizing is that there is a real paradox at play when it comes to AI adoption. And so I brought something, if you allow me to quickly show that, because in my line of work, you model things. You build models of things to try and get people to understand what it is you're trying to communicate. So I have one that I've really spent a lot of time on, and I hope you appreciate that, but here it is. This is
old school. You're going old school.
This is my adoption model. Yeah. So what you need to know about this, because I think this is profoundly important to discuss, is that previously with technologies, whether it's your laser pointer that you hold in your hand, you use your microwave oven, you use virtual reality, you use the internet itself, it's always followed a specific pattern, which is from the inside out. So all of these technologies have always previously started mostly in labs, in government labs in many cases, related to military research and technology, right? Again, microwave, GPS, all of these things. So they go from the middle, from government labs, they jump then to the only place where they can afford to play with these things, which is large corporate, right? Or academia as well sometimes. They mature that technology, it jumps to the next circle, which is more the SME zone, right? So mid-sized to semi-large companies, and then finally it jumps to the consumer area. Now with AI, for the first time, really, we're seeing the opposite. Where with the release of ChatGPT, it bypassed all of those circles and went straight from the middle to the outer edge. So we're seeing the adoption actually happening in the consumer sphere long before it's happening on the corporate level. And that has profound implications, I think, for the discussion about how do we innovate with AI? Because inside organizations, most organizations, you do not have the freedom to just go like, yes, experiment freely, use any AI that you like. You can't do that. Cybersecurity, privacy, all these reasons.
Everybody's struggling with that, I think. I know we have some examples. I know Expedia is one that I know of, has created kind of an AI playground for their employees. We know that Kayak has Kayak AI, where they're doing some testing. So it sounds like what you're saying is that needs to be encouraged.
It needs to be encouraged and understood that a lot of the freedom of experimentation is happening on the periphery, is people experimenting freely with their ChatGPT and their Gemini and 11 Labs and Perplexity in a way that they can't do in a corporate environment. So a lot of the new workflows and ideas that come out actually start there, and they need to find their way back to the center. And leaders need to understand that and enable that sort of reversal to happen so that it can trickle back into the organization. Otherwise, people, individuals, be far ahead of the organization.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's get to your next one here. So, this kind of speaks to your view about companies needing to push that experimentation. What would you say as you think about this and trying to work for the future and not just solving for today?
Well, the problem, especially with the speed of AI development, is that you're always behind the curve, and you know that.
Yeah.
Right? The moment you start, I see people saying, yeah, we're integrating. But you understand already, or you should understand, you probably do, that the moment the integration is completed and tested and rolled out, it's already obsolete in many ways. So you need this duality between, yes, doubling down on integration, but at the same time having part of a team or an executive team constantly being on the bleeding edge of this and willing to say, are we willing to basically throw out our operating model on a bi-yearly basis? Or at least be willing to take those chances, rather than just roll with, okay, this is now our AI approach, and we're going to roll with that for 10 years. That's never going to work. So you need to have that one foot in the future at all times. And that's scary for a lot of companies for obvious reasons, because who wants to constantly disrupt themselves? No one. You just want to get on with business. But we don't have that chance anymore, because 5 years down the line, with the model expansion that's coming, it's again a completely different story.
Do you think, as you talk to your clients and you're out speaking and leading sessions and things, do you think this is starting to resonate and people are starting to recognize the need for some of this shift in thinking?
Yeah, it's there. It's just that nobody's really certain about how to make that real, right? It's like, do we tread with caution? Do we do a little bit of, the big, for me, the big evidence of that is the sort of try to please everyone and you end up pleasing no one. And the manifestation of that is Copilot, with Microsoft Copilot. Everyone's going like, yeah, we're doing AI. We've got 100 licenses of Copilot. Go like, congratulations. That's neither here nor there, because Copilot is this, for lack of a better word, this neutered version of AI for good reason, but it's not really pushing the frontier. So it's more incremental.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know as I think about our own work with it, it's easy to kind of focus on what are we doing today that could be done more efficiently with AI, rather than maybe thinking, what are we not doing today that we should be doing tomorrow with this idea of moving ahead. So, okay, let's go on to this next one. Yeah, so I think, as AI gets better and better, I think we are all trying to figure out how we continue to bring value and differentiation. So this is a big one.
How you think is we know now, based on the research that's happening, the experimentation that's happening, that there is no real ceiling to what these systems can do, in the sense that you're never going to get to what they call artificial general intelligence, sort of the human level intelligence with large language models like ChatGPT. You're not going to get there. But the way you will get to something similar like that, something that is hugely powerful, is by attaching other models, and that's what's happening right now. They're called world models, where you have a more of a three-dimensional contextual perspective of the world that the LLM understands and can use. And so at that point, it really becomes an issue of this model, this system is now effectively more capable than I am in about 95% of things that I do. So what is there for me to do? Right? Now, I like being obsolete because it means I have more free time. But, that's an economic reality as well. That, I'm fortunate in that sense. But, the only defense that we have is to really tap into the kind of thinking that maybe eventually these systems will be able to do as well, but that is very difficult for an AI to achieve, which is what we tend to call creative thinking, which is, people say, no, even creative thinking they can do, but it's more a mimicking of creative thinking. Right? Specifically something called metacognition. Metacognition is the ability to think about your own thinking. And that's something uniquely human, our ability to think about our own thinking. It's very hard for an AI system to do that, because it's driven purely by a semantical understanding of the world. It has no agency. It has no purpose. It doesn't want anything, so it doesn't have an incentive to think about its own thinking. We do. That's why many of us doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a form of that. So it's just elevating that thinking to something that computers can't do.
One of the other things I saw, I think in an article of yours that I read, mentioned that you encourage people to kind of challenge assumptions that we may have, beliefs about our industry, beliefs about our customers that may no longer be true. And I think that's probably a big one for the travel industry. As things are moving fast, new generations are coming up, the idea of trying to not just think of things in the way they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I work across industries now, and I see perhaps more in some other industries than in travel, this willingness to look over the fence is the way I see it. Is to look at other industries and look at patterns and workflows and even business models that are not sort of natural to the travel world, but that could completely disrupt the way that you do things. I think that willingness to look at other industries as well and question, like, is this model that we're using for saying we're the travel industry, we're about getting people from A to B and doing things, is that the case? Or is there a way to re-examine that and question what is the travel industry really? Are we about moving people back and forth, or are we about creating experiences? If we're about creating experiences, does that mean necessarily hotels and walking around cities? I think that expansion of what it means to be a travel company needs to happen, because that's happening in many other industries where shipping companies are questioning, are we a shipping company? Right. Insurance companies are questioning, are we really into insurance, or what do we actually do at the heart of what it is that we do? Right. I think that sort of self-critique is necessary.
Right, so not getting caught up in the specific, like
No.
You could say travel is all about what, creating memories and creating, fulfilling dreams and that sort of thing, which is a much broader view than getting you from here to there. And,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, who says it has anything to do with logistics? I mean, it's about discovery. What does that mean? How do you empower that? Can I be in the travel industry without ever leaving my home? Strictly speaking, no. Yeah. Right? That's sort of the antithesis of travel. Maybe it isn't. Maybe there's a way to bring all of that together and reinvestigate what we think of as the travel industry.
Yeah, certainly with the help of technology. Okay, let's look at this next one. So this is kind of a big topic, of course, for everyone, but certainly in travel. This idea that the web may disappear. So your comment that I had found was that the web, as we have known it for the last 30 years, is about to disappear for good, which is, that's a big question when it comes to travel distribution. Companies that have built their whole entity around a website and bringing people in that way. What would you say to them?
Well, we see it happening in real time. I don't have to prove it. You see the statistics that are floating out there. Search isn't going anywhere immediately, but I've been saying that for a number of years. Gradually, we'll move into this space where everyone consumes their information on an on-demand basis by just telling a system, whether it's an LLM or an evolution of that, what it is you're looking for, and it will give you that straight from the source. When you use Gemini now, or you use ChatGPT, you use deep research and all of these things, you can see it happening in real time. So in many ways, the internet, or the web, as we should say, the internet is the infrastructure. The web has always been sort of a patchwork, a temporary solution, not a final end game thing. Same for Google, right? I've been saying that for a number of years. This UX, the user experience of having 100 blue links, that was never really fit for purpose. It was a stopgap solution for the end goal, which is people retrieving information that they want. So I see the web going in two distinct directions. One is an information silo that feeds AI systems, so where it's not directly about the visual interface, because humans will not see that.
Right.
The large language model needs to see that and be able to aggregate the information and distill that into something you can read. On the other side, doubling down on the opposite side of that, I think the web that will remain, the ones where we visit websites, will be highly experiential, highly visual. Very, very immersive things. But there's sort of the in-between stuff, which is the majority of the web today, which is just infrastructure, is going to disappear because we don't need it.
Yeah.
Right? We've had it for so long because we've had no other way of getting to that content in a structured, human-centered way. Now we do. So there's no reason for that to persist.
Any sense of how soon you see this happening?
Well, we see it happening in real time.
Yeah.
I mean, already now I know a lot of companies, savvy companies that are keeping their websites, don't get rid of the website yet, but building information silos that are optimized for large language models to be able to aggregate that information. Visual, textual, all of that stuff. So you'll start seeing that in parallel, but for sure in the next 5 years, right? people always say that 5 years because it's a safe bet,
Right.
5 years. But really, by 2030, the idea of going to a website will just seem completely antiquated unless it's very deliberate to have a visual experience. I think that's the only ones that really are safe in that new paradigm, like hotel websites and all that.
Right.
I think we will go to them deliberately, knowing that it's a slower experience, it's not the same user experience, but we'll do it deliberately because it's just a better experience, like going to the theater.
Right.
You deliberately do that and take that time. There will be some of that, but much of that will fall by the wayside.
Yeah, okay. And finally, this one, the best time to start was 2023. The second best time is today. It's all moving so fast. What advice might you have? What are you sharing as you're speaking, and how to kind of start to really make a difference?
Well, going back to the beginning, my patented world model here is spend more time on the periphery. Realize that this is where the experimentation is happening, and double down yourself. Like, don't let the AI wave or this AI paradigm, whatever you want to call it, don't let that be a work thing. It's a life thing. It's going to change, and it is changing the way societies operate, gradually and then fast, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a work thing. It's a life thing. So I think there's an urgency to it if you want to not just be relevant in the workplace in the future, but also if you just want to operate in life itself. And we've been through that before. Like, if you come in now and say, like, look, the internet and this whole email thing, I don't really do that. Okay, you can. Sometimes we all wish we didn't have to. But it's not really a way to work with the modern world.
Yeah.
And this just needs to be a natural skill set that you acquire now. Right? It's not going to wait for you.
Are you primarily, like, if you're doing a search, are you primarily using one of the LLMs now versus, let's say, Google?
I haven't used Google in the blue link thing. I haven't used that in a year or more. There's not because I have a thing against it, because it's just a bad user experience. Like Perplexity and now Gemini will give me these things much faster. And I'll build my own with AI.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I can build my own tools on demand.
All right, well, wonderful. Well, before we close, just a few rapid-fire questions for you. Would you say AI is more likely to be benevolent, beneficial force, or a danger?
Beneficial.
Yeah.
But that's our decision to make, everyone for themselves. I think it's hugely beneficial, right? I mean, there's dark sides to it, we know that.
Yeah.
The internet has dark sides, but largely the internet has elevated, whether GDP is a good measure for success and happiness is another story, but the internet has elevated the world's commerce, significantly in the last 40 years. So it's good.
Would you say we need more regulation or less oversight?
Less now, more later.
Okay. And finally, finish this sentence for me. In 5 years, the way we search and book travel
will be unrecognizable and entirely driven by what the consumer demands, not what companies tend to present.
Okay, wonderful. Marc Mekki, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.